Hey, good afternoon, everybody, with Family Forward. This is Connie Regulate. I am here with Laura Tomlinson in Missouri. And first of all, I want to apologize. It is 4:45 for our 4 o'clock live. So those who follow me a lot know that unfortunately, time is an estimation for me in these circumstances because it seems like something always happens. But today it was a utility thing, and it was kind of an emergency I needed to take care of. Now, it probably would have been okay, and my time would have gone really well. But I spent this morning at a Tennessee Republican Assembly meeting, and I got to talk one-on-one with a lot of people about running for school board, running for county offices, and I really want to work with my own county and maybe the surrounding counties to get some really good candidates and moving forward. So that put us a little bit behind as well. So here we are, though. And Laura and I really had talked about this earlier this week, and we wanted to share some of this with you because we were having a phone conversation about what was happening in Missouri. Now, I am the CPS bandit, right? I'm like chasing everything they're doing everywhere. And if any of you follow my timeline, you saw me post this little gif of this woman like pushing a bear off a wall. And I said that's kind of the meism of trying to push that bear over the wall over and over and over again. So Family Forward Project, of course, started on Facebook. We have the Family Forward Foundation, which is a 501c3. And what we have really worked on the past few months is setting up Family Forward project pages for every state, or they're actually groups, they're public groups.
Right.
So it will be Family Forward Missouri, Family Forward California, Family Forward Tennessee, and you can find your own state. And please do that. So for those who end up watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you, especially. A lot of people find me by finding YouTube videos. So I always try to hashtag my YouTube videos, Child Protective Services, defund DCS, defund CPS, etc. How do I fight for my children? And amazingly, a lot of people have located me through YouTube. And then on the YouTube, I always put in the description to join us on the Family Forward Project in Facebook. So a lot of things are going on. I do need to share with you that Karen Bass, Congresswoman Karen Bass, has introduced some new legislation. And I'm not going to take a lot of time to do that because I really want Laura and I to talk specifically about Missouri today. Now, Laura has a case of her own. She has a story of her own. She's a grandma. She's fighting for her own grandchildren. But she has, in doing this, she has seen, as many of our advocates do in the Family Forward Project, they have seen that this is crazy. Okay. It's crazy, insane what is happening. I've been a lawyer for 27 years, and I'm going to tell you the stories across the whole entire United States are the same, right? They ignore grandparents, they lie, they have false stories. I mean, it's just horrible. So it's the same stories over and over and over and over and over. And when I started talking about it to legislators and state legislators, they looked at me like I had two heads. I mean, they just like, but part of it is they don't know what to do. So we're going to talk specifically about Missouri, and so much has happened there recently. And the thing that really triggered me, that I was like, okay, Laura, we need to share this and go through this timeline, is that they had a huge fire this week. And so actually, Laura, what I want to do is I want to start with that. I want to start with the new story that came out early this week about a fire. So what can you share with us about that?
Okay, well, Tuesday, I went and delivered letters to the Capitol, and then I got home and found out that Monday night, the Department of Social Services and the IT department for social services was burnt to the ground. So to me, it sounds, like it was where they stored most of their information in the capital of Missouri. So.
Well, and this was their, when I read that article, this is their technology department. This is not just files. This is not
Right.
just paper files, which I mean, I've worked in
Mhm.
this business so long. I remember when every child was just a manila folder, right? And
Yeah.
which was horrible. And now they have all these huge information systems, huge servers. They take volumes of records. Sometimes it's just
Mhm.
repeated over and over and over the same
Right.
stuff. But in reading that story, it appeared that it was their technology services department,
Yes.
which would be their servers, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes, definitely. It sounds to me that that's definitely where they had been storing their information. And one of the reasons I think that as well is because, like, I know of where children's division's located out here. They're located at the Jefferson Building, and then they're also located. They have an office out by the at the mall. But I did not know that there was any social services um, administrative offices or anything in that building. So to me, it just sounds like a storage, like where it did say administrations too. So I'm thinking that's where their head people was
Yeah. So
offices
was
were.
there any report about was there any report it said suspicious. I mean, I know in our notes it says
Uh-huh.
suspicious, but have you seen any type of report that says the causation or
Not yet.
arson or anything like that?
Um, no, I just looked up earlier, update on it, and it just says that they're doing an investigation, but it might take a little bit to come out. And even if, it's no matter what the cause of this fire is, I'm always going to be suspicious of it because of the children missing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so we're going to back up from there and talk more about that agency. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bet this whole story disappears. Okay. It's kind of like, I'm in
Mhm.
Nashville and, last Christmas Day, we woke up in Nashville to have a huge explosion in the middle of
Right.
downtown Nashville at the AT&T building. And everybody chattered about it for about a day and a half. And then it just
Hmm.
like fell into the black hole of the news. So
Yep.
I am going to
Absolutely.
bet that this story falls into the black hole of the news. And no,
Of
so now
course.
let's go back and let's talk a little bit more generally about social services in Missouri and leading up to this and why it's making you and I so crazy. Now, I do want to tell people because you and I had this discussion too. And so I've been in this so long, sometimes I think things and I assume people understand parts that they don't. And there's no problem with that. It's just
Hmm.
I need to share that a little bit more with people. So
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
were talking about how the systems are set up. So all of
Hmm.
these agencies in every single state are state agencies and they are under the governor. Now, some states like North Carolina and California, they have county agencies, which is good and bad. So the good thing about a county agency such as California is that you can sue a county, but you can't sue a state. So
Right.
that's why attorneys like Sean McMillan have a heyday in California because he can go after these county agencies. Now, the bad news is, as discombobulated as they are, just generally as an agency, when you have county agencies, they're total screwballs, right?
Right.
And that's the problem with North Carolina. North Carolina has all these county agencies. They had no consistencies, no set policies or practices. And Sarah Carter in North Carolina was really beating the drum on that and was trying to get them to come around. So Missouri, like
Hmm.
Tennessee, is a state agency. It works under the governor. The governor gets to pick the person who operates the agency when they come in. However, this is really key, and we need to understand this from the very root of the problem. These agencies employ thousands of people. Okay. In Tennessee, it's 3,900. So almost 4,000 people. So in Missouri, Missouri's about the same size as Tennessee. So I'm going to assume you probably have at least about 4,000 employees as
Right.
well. Those 4,000 people have a certain mentality, right? And just because you change a governor doesn't mean you're going to change the agency. And until we have governors who put commissioners and directors in place that just go in and just hammer this agency and ask for a total makeover, nothing is going to change. So let's talk about Missouri Social Services and their director. And what did you shared with me about their director, Ted Wells. So talk to me just about how they run their agency.
Well, I wanted to read this real quick. I did find this about it says that Jason Turner said Tuesday, the building which housed a portion of state's Department of Social Services, DSS, and Office of Administration's Information Technology Services Division for DSS is a total loss. So that's the fire. I mean, that was what they say. So to me, I'd say definitely records and stuff like that is destroyed. But I mean, hopefully, well, no, because if we won't even say that. But anyways, Ashley Tidball is actually, we have had now 7 directors in 8 years in Missouri over Children's Division. The last acting director is Jennifer Tidball. I did find out that she has been removed from her position of director, but she's still acting in a high position in Children's Division. But now, let's see here.
And let's talk about her for a minute. So
Sure.
You're saying that she was removed, but the truth is, I mean, that sounds like movement. That sounds like corrective action. But if you look at her, she's been in that agency a long time.
Since the 90s.
Right. Yeah. So she's just like an old wound that keeps getting scratched open and then maybe, scabs over a little bit. And then the scab gets ripped off again because she doesn't go away. She just continually is kind of moved into these different positions. And I have seen that happen as well. So, and then let's talk specifically, you and I talked a little bit and you put in your messages to me. Let's see, you said Ashley, but it's Jennifer, right?
Jennifer. I did say Ashley. For some reason, I want to say Ashley because the star Ashley Tidball or Tisball or something like that. So I'm always getting it mixed up. But no, Jennifer Tidball. Absolutely Jennifer.
Jennifer Tidball. Yeah. So Jennifer Tidball also adopted kids that were in foster care, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay, so let's go back and let's talk about that a little bit because this is something that, again, in every state, the same themes, the same stories, the same situations pop up over and over and over. Yes. And that's so important for me and anybody else who wants to advocate for change, because when you go talk to a legislator and you say, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened. The director of the agency adopted kids out of foster care who should have been returned to the parent, right? And you say that and they go like, first of all, there must be something you're not telling me. And secondly, well, that's just the one offer, right? That's just like an oddball experience. And yet I am seeing the same kind of weird things where children are basically being trafficked to people with influence within the system.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll tell you why. I can find her name is Jessie Lake, and she is definitely public with it. And I have a whole lot of information on that case. But yes, Jennifer Tidball manipulated the situation to adopt her twins. And just beautiful little girls. But she adopted her 6-year-old twins. Now, let me tell you that the state deems her capable of taking care of her other children, but not those twins. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she has another set of twins, believe it or not, that are just 2. And then she has a 6-year-old, I believe, son. Or no, the girls are 6. She has an older son, like 10 or something. But she's got, I think her twins are actually in with her a lot, but they're with a family member or somebody, a foster parent that she chose, but she's always with them. I mean, it seems very odd to me. And she swears she did not get a hearing. And all of this stuff is actually on mainstream media. It can be found. through the mainstream media. So when people seem to question, like you said, why are you not telling us? There's got to be something else. This can't possibly be happening. It is.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, somebody just posted here is from Facebook and should be charged with fraud. I'm a grandmother who wrongfully denied in 2015 after fighting for as my own attorney for
Yeah.
3 years, which I get that. I'm so sorry for you. He was adopted out close to home, close, no home study, no background check, further, no need. Oops, I'm losing it here. For jurisdiction in the first place. Grandma was already daughter and father surrendered to him and me. CPS denied me um, before I even went to court. And her typing was fast, and there's a lot of typos. I'm having trouble reading all of it. But you're exactly right. The issue with grandparents is horrible. I mean, I've had to step in and help with my own grandkids, and there are times where our own kids need some help for whatever reason. I mean, sometimes it's just a shaggy life where they can't get their act together, and sometimes it's more serious. And as parents, we're not going to we're not going to forget our children. We're going to try to work through with our children what we can.
Absolutely.
But we also are quite willing to step in with our grandchildren. And one of the things that's totally bizarre to me is when the CPS agencies, even if they do allow a grandparent to even step in and receive any type of acknowledgement, they will then shun them if they support their own children, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
will then.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I think,
definitely.
and I think
Judge the
that's part of
family
the
apart.
experience that you've had.
Yes, it is. I was told that one of the reasons that I can't have my grandkids is because I refuse to admit that my son is the problem. And I'm
Right.
like, I don't know how I refuse to admit that when I'm the one that, I mean, he's went through treatment. I've supported him. He's doing really good right now. But I've always supported him, through getting the help that they need. But that is like just when I had the boys, it was like couldn't talk to him. I wasn't supposed to even communicate, and definitely not let him catch wind of the kids or anything. It was just,
Yeah.
they
And
separate.
another Facebook user says, "Do you notice that every time it's the agency that denies the grandparent, not the judge who's running that courtroom?" Well, that's a really
Right.
interesting really comment. And I'm going to
Yes.
tell you, I have worked throughout Tennessee in probably half of the counties, and they're all county courts. And most of the time, it appears that DCS is running the show. So once
They
in a
are running
while,
the show.
yeah, CPS is running the show. And the guardian ad litems, who are like an extension of the CPS agency for whatever reason, they,
Right.
do not defend children. But that is so true. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. It's mind boggling. People don't even get it if they're not in that
No.
situation. All right. So let's go back to Missouri. I don't want to forget Missouri, because that is one reason that we wanted to make sure we got on here today. And you are my Missouri girls. So, all right. So let's go back. We talked about Tidball, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
when did she do that adoption? Do you know?
I believe it was maybe 2000. I think they were like 2 or 3, so it was somewhere like a couple years ago. I'm not sure when it was finalized. So it was, but she would be more than willing to talk public if you would ever want to bring her on. She's
Okay,
definitely
great.
but she
And I will tell you, one of the stories that I looked up and I researched was a judge. And I mean, we have a case that a judge adopted kids out of foster care, and the judge was gay, and he had a gay partner, and he adopted like 3 or 4 little boys out of foster care. I mean, I don't know. It's just a little odd to me. And I know in another case, and I can't remember who it is now. I'm afraid to say because I'll get the name wrong. But the judge's clerk, actually adopted the child that was in the courtroom.
I mean, how can that not be a conflict? That's got to be a conflict of interest. Like, you should not be able to do that if you are in that position.
No.
You just should not be able to do that. You cannot possibly give a fair fight to that parent. You couldn't,
Right.
so I don't know.
All right, so let's back up and again in looking at Missouri. So we have this issue with Tidwell, who's like I said, she's been like an old wound that keeps popping up in the agency. And
Yes.
then also just a couple weeks ago, we had this federal watchdog report came out about the kids that were missing in 2018 and 19, and it was almost 1,000 children. And they were all children who were missing out of foster care. Is that correct?
Yes. All of them missing out of foster care, and only like 30-something% of them reported. I've compared that number to, Mr. The missing and exploited children. There's not even that many that they've got missing. So I think that there was, I can't recall the number on the report that I got from Lucinda Pennington, but some of them they had an 18-month-old listed as a runaway. Like there's just like the reports that are coming out. If they was to really dig into these reports, they would find so much, because here's the thing. They're just not hiding it. They don't care.
Right.
They're like, just do what we do. And so but only 30-something% was reported. I can pull it up here, but I think it was 30.
Look at that a minute. I want you to talk about that. I wanted to tell you what somebody else commented here. This is horrible. And I'll tell you guys, we are using StreamYard. And so sometimes your names pop up on the comments and sometimes they do not. I know a lot of you, so sometimes I can tell from your comments who you are. But listen, I was a former foster parent in Missouri to a young man, 12, that hung himself after he was removed from my home because I reported that his social worker told him she wanted to adopt him and introduced him to her family. I'm like, oh my gosh. This is so crazy.
It is crazy.
It is so crazy. There needs to be laws for no workers, courts, or affiliates to be able to do that. You're right. I agree. Totally agree. Missouri foster care is a huge mess. I gave up my license because of a Black racist worker who didn't like it that I had a white family and adopted a Black child. Yeah, I do want to talk about that just a second. I had an article that the Tennessee Tribune did for me, and it was actually a Black child was removed from a mom who was a disabled. She was a disabled mom, and hold on here a minute. She was a disabled mom, and she her child was taken and put with a white family, which is okay. I don't mind. But what they did is they sabotaged the Black family and kept them from getting the child back. So I'm quite troubled by that. But tell me more about looking at these missing children. What did you glean anything else from that about where they were missing or why or?
No, there's nothing comes out after that report. I mean, it did hit all of the news. I'm trying to find where it listed that the federal watchdog, it also went to the attorney general, and I'm trying to find where the representative, one of our lawmakers said, because one of the children was definitely trafficked 4 states. And so they said, we definitely need to follow regulations and take up opportunities to, care or pay more attention to at-risk youth that are at risk of fleeing. And we're going to have to, we definitely don't want kids to be trafficked because we will lose our funding.
Right. So, was the way they sound it. Yeah.
It's exactly like that. And then I also, one of the things the department referred to October 31st, that memo that then Children's Division Director Tim Decker outlined administrative steps caseworkers could stop doing in order to focus on engaging children and families. So like, I'm realizing that there's people that have stepped out, but then like what these directors, I mean, where do they go? I mean, they won't say a foul word about Children's Division. these ex-directors. Oh, it was a pleasure
Yeah.
working for Children's Division.
Yeah, I mean, somebody else has shared that as a foster child, they were in 16 different homes, abused,
That's horrific.
neglected. Yeah, it's just horrible. So I pulled up this report on the missing children, and it actually wasn't an investigation by the Office of the Investigator General,
Yeah.
Inspector General. I'm sorry, Office of Inspector General at Health and Human Services, which is the federal agency, and it's the same
Yes.
federal agency which distributes that money.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so what it said in this report was that Missouri is not, though Missouri is not required to do so, we note that it does have policies for identifying children who may be at heightened risk of missing or interventions to reduce their risk. In 59 cases we reviewed in detail, Missouri rarely demonstrated attempts to reduce children's risk of going missing. And that's pretty key.
Yeah.
And I'm going to interject right here, just something that I've worked with recently. I mean, I've had several teenage crazy, I'm just going to call them crazy teenage cases because, and I say that with respect, but they're mess. They're a total mess. And I'm not blaming the parents. I don't know what's happening with kids, but this one child, she just would not stay home. She just left and left and left and left and ran away and then vandalized the sidewalk and made a false report. I mean, it was just crazy. But I'm telling you, DCS really didn't want her. They didn't want her because they knew she had a high propensity to be a runaway. She wasn't going to stay wherever they placed them. I'm going to say this, and I'm still a little struck by it, but DCS agreed for this child to stay with the total stranger that they picked. And, that the parents and I have struggled with this. They did a criminal background check, but they've left that child with somebody who's not a licensed foster care home, who they have no obligation to follow up with.
Let me guess, safety plan.
Not even, no,
Wow.
no, not even a safety plan. And they have no follow-up. We have asked them repeatedly to have this child have a full psychological because she's 17 and a half. She's going to be turning 18 soon. Then we're going to lose total control of her, right? She is going to be gone. She's going to evaporate into society, and she's totally dysfunctional. They did not. They've had this child in their radar since early August, and the child wouldn't do what they asked her to do then. And then I told the parents when they called me, I'm like, DCS needs to do a full psychological of the child before we do anything else. Because she is either borderline personality, she's either manic depressive, she's got reactive attachment disorder. There is something that she needs to understand herself, whether or not she gets treatment for it at this stage in her life at 17 and a half. Maybe after she's totally wrecked her life, by the time she's 24 or 25 years old, she'll say, oh, maybe there was something that, about that reactive attachment disorder that I need to get some assistance with. And I think that's an obligation that we have. Right now we're not doing anything. We get children 17 years old and oh my gosh, I mean, my 17-year-old kids were hard to deal with as well. But, we're not, when they get in DCS's radar, they need to be doing something to say, okay, this child's almost 18. What are we going to give her as she leaves, childhood and
transitioning age? Yeah. Children transitioning out of foster care, especially suffer from all different types of high risk for trafficking. And the thing is that a lot of times they won't identify as being a victim because they're so used to being used that it just feels trafficker can manipulate them just enough. And so it just feels like if we could do some type of pre-pilot prevention before these kids transition out, the thing is that even if there's services that are offered, some for transitioning age foster kids, a lot of them are like, nope, we're gone. They've been through a lot of abuse through their whole lives in foster care. It's like they take kids that, like I had the same situation with a 14-year-old girl at my last job. The lawsuit and all of that is centered around this case. And they didn't want to help this child either. They didn't want this kid, you know, they didn't want the responsibilities. They failed to protect this child, but yet they will take, you know, a couple little kids, little babies, or, you know, from functionable families. But
Yeah.
they left this girl in this bad situation. Then when the mother tried to press charges on her rapist, because they had been called so many times and failed to protect her, they told the mother, "We will have you arrested for failure to protect."
Mm-hmm.
I looked at him and said, "Well, didn't you fail to protect? I mean, didn't they fail to protect? You've been called
Mm-hmm.
to her house like 10, 20 times." And they
Yeah.
left this
And
child
that's,
with
yeah.
an 18-year-old boy for
Yeah.
when their mom went and had surgery on a safety plan that this little 14-year-old girl was having relations with. They just don't care. They just don't care.
Yeah. And you know, that is exactly what happened in my recent case as well. Like the parents were like, if you don't agree to place her you know, to give her, let her go
Mhm.
someplace, we're not going to keep picking her up. Law enforcement were like, we're not going to keep bringing her home. We're like, well, put her in jail. Well, I'll tell you what's funny. The county that
Mhm.
she's in, the judge got in really big trouble for putting kids in
Right.
jail. So now the
Right.
judge won't put any kids in jail. So now they've like
Yeah.
gone totally the opposite way. It's like total chaos. I mean, it's really like fighting
Yeah.
your way out of a Ziploc bag
Well,
because
yeah,
you know it's a mess.
it
It's just a
is.
total mess.
And they're very abusive to these kids. Like I've talked to several when if they're in the judicial system, you know, I'm not talking about the foster system right now. I'm talking about kids that they end up locking up in the judicial system. They are so like there was a case where they choked a kid out. The guy that was the director of Great Circle choked a kid out, and it got caught. He got caught on camera. There's cases where like it was in the news of, I think in 2014, it was in the news where the Pringer Center actually allows kids to restrain other kids.
Oh yeah, wow.
It's just a mess. Yes, it's a mess. And then they create these problems, and these kids, you know, they get told, like I've seen some terrible things, and so I've heard of some terrible things. I'm sure you have too. Um, and these kids, and they create these unwanted behaviors, and then they this ends up being generation after generation. They end
Right.
up losing their children, and then their
Exactly.
children lose their
Exactly.
children. And
Yeah,
it's
so I want to go, and I want to go back to this report because I want the words in here are so telling. And it says for 1 in 3 of the children whose cases we reviewed, there was no documentation that the children received any required health and safety checks following the child's return to foster care. For these children, there was no evidence that their case managers assessed their safety, determined their experiences while missing, or determined whether they fell victim to sex trafficking while they were missing from care. They don't even
yeah,
ask, okay? They have basically a don't ask, don't tell policy
yeah,
of what happened while you were missing. In our
right,
conversation with Missouri officials, we learned that Missouri cannot rely on its case management system to accurately identify children who are missing from foster care without reviewing individual case files. That's crazy. That's why they all burned down, I guess, recently. The current system alone cannot distinguish between children who are missing from their placement and those who are in an unapproved but known placement. Okay.
right,
So they don't even have enough uh, detail in their data system to
right.
know if the child's just living with somebody, which is kind of random anyway. Now, it says in here that we, to better protect children from risk being associated with missing from care, we recommend that Missouri adopt policies to help identify children who have a heightened risk of going missing. That's really pretty easy because
Yeah,
the children that go missing, they don't just like have a happy life and then walk out the door one day.
no,
They are either children who've already suffered from runaway or children who don't feel like they're being heard. So their case
right,
management process is so bad. The
yeah,
implement a monitoring mechanism to ensure that case managers comply with requirements and document their compliance when children are identified as missing and when they are located to or returned to care. And 3, implement improvements in the case management system to enable accurate identification of children who are missing from care. And then it goes on in the next paragraph. So people need to understand that we have HHS, which HHS is Health and Human Services. That is the federal department. They are the ones who dish out the Title IV money, the Title IV-E, Title IV-B, Title IV-D. All of that Title IV money goes through HHS. So HHS has within HHS, because they also do Medicare, Obamacare, all that kind of stuff, right? All kinds of welfare issues. So they also have the Administration of Children and Families, which is called ACF. And then they have the Children's Bureau. So it gets real complicated. They hire thousands of people on our tax dollars, but ACF. So this report says that ACF needed to develop a forum for states to share experiences and best practice, share experiences. They don't need to share experiences. They just need to watch us, right? I mean, we are sharing these experiences every day. They just need to go through the Family Forward Project and read those stories. If I
That's exactly what they need to do. Absolutely.
People have done such a good job, and then I'm so heartbroken for many people, but I want to do a shout out for all the people on the Family Forward Project and all of the other social media groups. We have probably, I think there are probably different 40 some different Facebook, whatever, pages, groups, and people are sharing their story in detail. And then it says, let's see, to support, then the ACF is to support Missouri as it works to reduce children's risk for going missing from foster care. I mean, it talks about children. It says in this report says thousands, not 1,000, thousands of children are missing from foster care systems across the nation. Absolutely. Thousands. Okay. So Missouri is not sitting on an island all alone on this. So we have, see if there was anything more in here, but this is the report that came out of HHS. And you can actually, I know this story got posted. I don't think you can see this if I hold it out. It's probably not too hard to see.
Yeah,
you can actually get right to the report. If you are like a real geek and you want to read all, I'm going to put this here in front.
The whole report.
You want to read that whole report, all that small print. I mean, I read a lot of these. It's crazy. Sometimes there's charts in here. The charts are usually pretty telling. Let's see, there's a few charts in here. Let me see what this one is. It says 49 of 59 children with episodes of going missing had at least one risk factor. So they already know what the risk factors are. It said 37 of the children had a previous episode of going missing. 23 children, there were 6 or more foster care placements. Okay, so they already know what these factors are. 23 children had no family visitation plan. Okay, they know that's a high risk factor. 18 children, the current placement was in a group home or residential facility. So we already know what some of the risk factors are. If children are not keeping a good bonding relationship with their family, they are at such a high risk. I mean, even if it appears, one of the things that is so troubling to me is that when DCS goes, oh, they don't want to see their parents right now. I'm like,
they turn kids against. I got somebody on the inside that is an they're not they worked not as a caseworker, but they worked at the same department. And they said that they know that that DFS jokes about the children that are high risk, they run away, and then the traffickers will use that child to come in and get more kids to traffic, influence. So they joke about that. Like they say it's just so common for them to do it. So the traffickers are very much onto this. They know where to get their children. Just like any other business, is a supply and a demand. And Children's Division happens to be a real big contributor to sex trafficking of
Oh,
children.
there is no doubt. There is no doubt. I mean, we already know that. I mean, that report has already been put out by NCMEC
Yep.
that
Over and over.
67% or more, I can't, 67% of the children who are sex trafficked came out of foster care. We
Yeah.
already know that. I mean, we already
Yeah.
know that risk
It's
factor is there. So,
well, it says here the new director is Robert Naudel. It says after years of dysfunction and criticism, including lawsuits, legislative inquiries, and a revolving door of leaders, the announcement Tuesday that Governor Mike Parsons was putting one of his top deputies in charge of Missouri Department of Social Services was greeted with optimism.
who is he? Have you looked him up yet? Where did he
No,
come
I just
from?
found this. Like I just found this article. So
Okay,
I will.
here's another chart in here. It says there was no evidence that many children received required health and safety checks. So we have here 32% of the children, no evidence of receiving any of the 6 required health and safety screening assessments. For 61% of the children, no evidence of an assessment of safety. For 68% of the children, no evidence of attempting to determine the child's experiences while missing. To me, that is absolute negligence. That is gross negligence that you haven't even determined. I mean, oh my gosh. My gosh. I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, a child going missing for 24 hours. And I had a teenager that did a runaway stint on me. Actually, both of my teenagers tried it at one point, but one of them scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was sick to my stomach about her missing. And I just like at one point, I had to tell myself I was never going to see her again. She was going to be picked up in by some trucker and sex trafficked. I mean, the risk is so incredibly high. All right. So let's see. 73% of the children, there was no evidence of attempting to determine the factors that led to the episode of going missing. Again, absolute negligence, especially when there's got to be something that triggers it.
And you're talking about 900 and something. You're not, and that's just the ones that they've found. That means there's probably even more than that. I just can't, even in the city streets of, I cannot imagine that many children. It's really, where did they go?
88% of the children. Now, these are children, I'm assuming these are children that were lost and then were found, because it says on 88% of the children, there was no evidence of screening to identify if they had been victims of sex trafficking. So again, the no ask, don't tell policy, when you are talking about children and the risk and the propensity for that to happen is outrageously high. I mean, the risk is crazy high.
Yeah.
And this is just like such a huge problem with the whole entire thing of the way we're managing children and taking children out of homes and putting them in different places and different, different situations. So it's just that, Missouri is a mess. They're all a mess.
One of the lawsuits that I found when I was looking through them was one where they had failed the doctor, I guess counselor that the child seen told, this child had been abused by his biological father, supposedly sexually abused by the mother. This is what the accusations were, was placed in foster care with a couple. This couple, the kid reported to his doctor or his counselor that this couple was sleeping with him naked. Okay, so they found it. This is a lawsuit. It's CW, I believe. So they found this. So this child told. So they addressed it, but they still left this kid in that home. And the guy said, well, we have a blanket between us, you know,
No.
and they said, no, it's not good. You can't do that. Well, they failed to protect this kid because then at the age of 16, this child committed a bunch of crimes and come clean and said that he had been being raped by this foster dad or this adopted dad for all this time. And so at that time, they put him on the registry.
Oh
And
my
so he was
gosh.
trying to sue to get his name off the registry. But then all of a sudden, the doctor switched around. The doctor switches around and says what he doesn't believe the child was sexually abused, although at first he said that he believed that the child was telling the truth. And then the foster parents admitted to sleeping with this child naked.
Yeah.
Years before, it just makes me sick. Makes me
Yeah.
sick. And you want to
Yeah.
know something? They will they will not report a missing child, obviously, because they don't want, but yet if a parent was to run off with their grandkid or their kid or their grandkid or something, they would put a nationwide
Amber
hunt.
Alert. Amber Alert, right? On when a parent
Amber
has a
Alert.
child. That's why I hardly ever watch Amber Alerts anymore.
No,
Holly said you're giving too much credit to the case managers. They're following a template and they have no idea of the questions they are asking and they don't want the answer. Well, I agree. I don't even know if they have a template though, Holly. I I don't know. I cannot figure out what they do. I will tell you part of the open records request that I do in Tennessee is about their training. And I asked to get their training and I go through their training. It's really pretty pitiful. I got this one, it was a Zoom training. It was like hours and hours. It was like the most like sleepy eyed, like I'm sure people were like muting out their videos and, going and playing TikTok on their phone while they were trying to get through that training so that they say they could complete it. It's horrible.
Yeah,
The training is horrible.
Relias training is what they call it. Relias.
Yeah, and animate. I mean, this wasn't even, there was no system in place for this. I mean, this was training they created their own.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and they had little animation creatures on ADA, which was just crazy too. It was totally incompetent. And I can't believe with all of the millions of dollars in Tennessee, it is now, oh my gosh, let's see, $993 million. So I'm sure Missouri is pretty close to it as well. So,
Right. Yeah.
so we have now, before we finish up with Missouri, I do want you to then touch base on just to get everybody again watching. I mean, the one reason we want to talk about this is so people can put their eyes on their own state and see what's happening. So let's talk about Missouri, and then I'm going to wrap up with telling people what I want them to do. Okay. Let's talk about the psychotropic drug lawsuit litigation.
Just had that lawsuit up here. So Missouri was sued for over medicating children. What did I do with it? I have so much paperwork out here because I'm doing a report on it. Okay. MB versus Corsi. Missouri was putting children on medication, psychiatric or psychiatric medications while in state care without being in any type of supervision or direct. Let's see, plaintiffs, children in foster care alleged that defendants, the acting director, which was Ms. Tidball, of Missouri Department of Social Services and the director of Children's Division of Missouri Department of Social Services have failed to implement a system of safeguards and oversight with the administration of psychiatric drugs to plaintiffs. Plaintiffs assert claims for violation of their sustainable and procedure due process rights under. So basically, they were sued for giving kids too much medication. Like I have whistleblown about that since I worked in behavioral health. Like I remember there were times like where families that I would work with would be like, my kid's slobbering. My child is slobbering. They're not normal, like something is wrong. And I'm like, well, talk to the doctor. We'll talk to the caseworker. Let's see what let's tell them, and then I would tell them under the table sometimes, if you don't want your child on a behavioral medication, it is not against the law. It is not a medical necessity. You do not have to put them on a behavioral medication, but I would not take them off cold turkey. It was bad. And I whistle blew about that. And then all of it, I'm telling you, it's bad. That is really bad. That is severe.
And I will say that the psychotropic medication has popped its head up in many states. I mean, there's like a pretty old broadcast out of Kentucky where they talked about it, but it's something that we're following and tracking, in Texas as well. So now somebody asked how to get in touch with you. I just posted Laura Thomason Facebook. Is that the best way for them, just to join Family Forward Missouri and then just locate you? You're an administrator in that group, right?
Yes, I am. Just locate
Family Forward Missouri, and then they can message you privately out of once they locate. So if you all are Facebook users, you can find Family Forward Missouri, and then you can either look for Laura in there, because she posts in there all the time. I know she does a lot of live videos.
I'll be sitting there doing my homework or working, and I something to go across my mind, and I'll be like, oh.
Yeah, she posts a lot. She does a lot of live videos, just chatting about her own experience and just what's happening that she sees all the time. So please find her. Please connect with her when she's in Missouri. All right, so we are at about 50 minutes. We want to wrap it up here. So I want to just talk about moving forward. Again, I will say again, Congresswoman Karen Bass has introduced some new legislation for those of you who are just picking up today. I am going to, I want to do another broadcast about that. And I will try to give you notice about it. I set it up as an event, and I hope that helped you guys. I work all the time. I'm watching my grandkids. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do politically here for 2022. So I'm a pretty busy little girl. So y'all just have to bear with me if I'm 10, 15, even 20 minutes late. So just hang in there. But I do really appreciate you watching, you sharing. I mean, we have a story to tell. And if I can tell 100 of you, and then you can share it with 100 more, it just grows and grows and grows.
Absolutely.
All right. So I have seen, we want to get together someplace. I know a lot of people say, rally, rally, rally. Nobody comes to a rally. What are we going to do? I agree that it is difficult for people to come to rallies for many reasons, for expenses, distance, their own obligations, etc. I really want you to learn how to be a legislative lobbyist. I really want you to be comfortable calling your legislators. You would be shocked at how many people, I get lots of phone calls every day from people who located me, and they want to see about maybe just doing a consult or spending a little bit of time with me going over their case, which I can do, and I can reduce my hourly rate a little bit doing that. So, but they don't even know. I say, who's your state legislator? Have you called them? Have you sent them an email? Have you talked to them about this? And they don't even know who it is. Now, I'm not going to poo-poo anybody, because I'm going to tell you, I am sure I was 45 years old before I knew who my state legislator was. And it was only because I dug my heels in and I was pissed off, and I wanted to track some laws and see what we needed to do about them. So you must identify your state legislators as we are moving into the next year, which is going to be a historic year for many reasons, but it will only be a historic year if you dig your heels in. Okay. If you are the ones who say, okay, I'm going to do something. I also just want to give a shout out to anybody, the Family Forward people who tell their stories. Thank you for spending that time telling your stories. Writing it down is so important. Now, I'm going to say, if you have not written your story down in some type of declaration of facts or some listing of specific facts, take your Facebook post, copy and paste it into a Word document. All you have to do is clean it up a little bit, put your dates in there, make sure your pronouns that when you say he, she, it, the people know who you're talking about, make paragraphs, use capitalization properly. Okay. Clean it up. Go back to your 5th grade grammar and clean it up a little bit. and you have a statement that you can provide to your legislators, that you can file a complaint with directly to the commission, you have got to rattle their cages. Okay.
Absolutely.
People are like, no, they won't listen to me. They won't listen to me. Well, you know what? They will listen to thousands of us. Okay.
Yes, they
will
will.
listen, and we will make that change. So I want you to, we are chattering about trying to meet someplace. One of my best friend advocates, Jennifer Wynn, is in Kansas. And so maybe it'll be somewhere in between. I'm not sure, but I'll keep you updated on that. But I want you to look at your life, say, what am I going to do every day? I have postcards. I did a postcard campaign before, a MAGA, Make My America Great, Dear Mr. President Trump, when he was in office, and we sent about 1,000 postcards. And people say, did you get anything back? Well, yes, I did. I did get a letter now. And of course it was, I'm sure everybody got the letter that says, thank you for your correspondence, etc. That was signed. However, what we did get is June the 24th of 2020, we got an executive order from President Trump. And don't think that our correspondence and our letters that we wrote didn't have something to do with that. So the wheels change and the wheels turn when we continue to be active.
Yes.
So, and thank you, Laura, because of just, your daily, just like your message on a daily basis. Sometimes they may be more encouraging than others, but I just say to you too, as you speak to people out there, just say, look, get up and do something. Just do something.
Absolutely.
Call somebody, make your own little poster. I know you have protested by yourself, right? Like
yes, I have. I've been that crazy lady on the corner with my sign.
God bless
Absolutely.
you. Protest your own life, right? Protest yourself. Hold a sign up. I say within 3 degrees of separation, you will, somebody that you touch on a day-to-day basis has been touched by CPS. It may be somebody at the grocery store's cousin, you may see something else, but just kind of engage in conversation and, reach out on Facebook, but tell your story. All right.
Well, and then Mike Moon, Representative Mike Moon, talked about wanting business cards from.
Oh yeah. I want to tell that. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to tell that because that's like, yeah, right. Okay, so Laura shared with me that she finally did get in front of, was it a state senator?
It's Representative Mike Moon.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So a state representative. And it's like, and here's what happens when you go to your state legislature. They say like, oh, that's horrible. Oh, that's horrible. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I don't know if there's anything I can do about it though. Right. And so then what he did is he basically said to Laura, which really kind of telegraphs to us that we're not the only people who are calling, right? You're not the only person who's calling.
We must not be the only people contacting.
Yeah, this is not like something new, right? And so he wanted cards from Family Forward to be able to hand people, or a phone number to give them to call us to work out the problems for them. So Laura and I've had some conversations about this, and we're going to kind of brainstorm about that. But they want us to fill that gap, which is okay. We can do it. We're going to do it. And we're going to reach right out to them and say, just have people call us, send them to this website, give them this phone number. We need a 1-800-MY-CHILD or something, that we can give people. So we'll work on that. But thank you for sharing that. Thank you for all you do, and give some closing words out there to the people in Missouri so they reach out to you.
I will do that. I'll put some information in the comment box. Just private message me, and also, like Connie said, look up for Family Forward Missouri, or if you're in a different state, look up Family Forward in that state, and you should be able to find your state as well. And you can, and then there's Family Forward Project, so that is kind of universal through all the states.
Yep, the Family Forward Project is the Facebook group that covers all the states. All right, well, we're going to be signing out, you all, and take care. Don't give up. keep talking, keep pushing. The only way this tanker is going to turn around is if we shove it. All right.
That's
So
right.
y'all, good night. God bless
Good night,
everybody.
guys. Good night.